Good evening. Welcome to the second interview, the second half of the interview with Mr. Harvey B. Gantt. We want to thank you for taking the time to come out and spend with us. My name is Pastor Evan Willis. I'm the pastor of the Northeast Seventh-day Adventist Church, or what I call Northeast SDA, located in the Hidden Valley community of Northeast Charlotte. And as we take this time to go through this interview, I want to remind you of what we touched on last week. He talked about his early life growing up in South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, and then going to Clemson University, and the whole legal process of him becoming a student there. This week, we're dealing with, in the final installment of the interview, we're going to deal with Mr. Gantt's experience as a politician, professional, and a leader in the Charlotte community. But also, he's going to highlight for us the areas in which we still need growth in today's Charlotte as we chart the way forward. I want to thank you for joining us. So this time, if you are prepared for this interview, we invite you to use the bathroom if you got to do it. Get your popcorn, get your snacks. Prepare for part two of this interview with Mr. Harvey B. Gantt. Thank you, and see you on the other side. And just shifting the conversation forward a little bit. At the time of this interview, right now, our nation is experiencing civil unrest, which has resulted in nationwide protests and various groups and organizations trying to strategize and figure out what needs to happen. As it relates to social justice, would you describe yourself more as Martin or Malcolm?
That's a complicated question.
Okay.
I would probably say I was more Martin than Malcolm.
Okay.
Although, people have this image that Martin Luther King was not the warrior that, say, Malcolm was.
Yeah.
Believed in nonviolence.
Yeah.
As the primary instrument to bring down the walls of segregation.
Yeah.
We will, in reflection, say he was successful in doing that.
Yeah.
Malcolm, I also love for many of the things that he did in terms of instilling some greater pride in who we are and the fact that we can't be pushed around.
Yeah.
We are people, and I could go on and on about that. And he could, but Martin was if you could say he was accepted, he was more acceptable when you're talking nonviolence.
Yeah.
So take a look at what's going on today.
Yeah.
There are peaceful protesters who are nonviolent and who are protesting a just cause.
Yes.
And there are people who are a little bit more violent, shall we say, in response to the anger that they feel.
Yeah.
We tend to praise the protesters.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we understand fully what they're protesting, but we universally condemn anybody who damages property, and that's and they get condemned all across the spectrum, white and black.
Yeah.
And in my case, even though we were pioneers, we were considered ultimately at the end of the day. I could invite Harvey Gantt to a cocktail party.
Yeah.
And he will carry on a conversation and not embarrass me.
Yeah.
And I will feel good that I had a friend like Mr. Gantt, who was the first African-American student at Clemson.
Yeah.
Not so if you said, I'm a Black militant, a Black Panther, or Malcolm X.
Yeah.
We are fearful of those who will say, we're going to get our rights by any means necessary, including destruction of property, or at least not turning the other cheek, shall we say.
Yeah. Wow, that's heavy. Outside of protests, what other ways have you seen positive social change made, particularly for the Black community?
Reverend Willis, one of the things that I am so sorely disappointed in terms of what's going on right now is that it seems like when we thought we were making change years ago, you remember a guy named Rodney King?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
How much different is that than, except that he didn't die,
Yeah.
than the current situation in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Rodney King was almost, what, 40 years ago? So one of the things that we have made progress. I think in retrospect, I look back and that progress that we made, that we felt so hopeful about, was, quote, relatively easy when compared to what we have to deal with today. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Segregation was wrong in the South. It was wrong constitutionally. It was wrong in every way, shape, or form. And all we had to do was figure out a way to get enough political clout to, in fact, get those laws off the books. And so legal segregation is no longer observed anywhere in America, from small town to big city. But you got a tougher job today. And I think Martin Luther King alluded to it some time ago. It is easier to break the laws, to get those laws off the book and force people to have certain public behavior because of the laws. But how do you deal with the heart? How do you deal with the latent racism that exists? How do you deal with 400 years of history in which white America has never fully digested the fact that African Americans are equal to them? And that's a tougher thing to overcome, latent and overt racism. So I say we've made progress through protests, through political power that we've gained, that made changes. In the city of Charlotte today, we have a Black police chief, a Black fire chief, a Black city manager, a Black mayor, a Black chairman of the county commission. So you might say, well, Charlotte shouldn't have any problems. But we know we do. That there's systemic racism still there. There's, we don't have the kind of economic clout we should have. We don't run the businesses. We don't hire most of the folks. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of work to be done, even if we've had a lot of victories. That's more answer than you probably wanted, but
no, that's a
I think protest certainly has worked. Political power has worked. Voting has worked. But we're not finished yet.
And so are you suggesting that maybe not now, but there was a period in which maybe we got comfortable and assumed that we had arrived, and now we're realizing the wool's been pulled over our face, from off our face now?
I don't know if the wool has been pulled over our face as much as we tended to want to ignore the fact that it still existed, that racism still existed out there. And a lot of us did get comfortable. We did get to move into nice neighborhoods. We did get to carry a briefcase to work. We did earn six-figure incomes. We did start to believe that we were moving up and realizing the American dream. It was being fulfilled in lots of ways. But everybody didn't get on that train. Everybody didn't climb that ladder equally. Our schools didn't educate all of our children. And that's the problem we have. So the contract with society was not fulfilled by everybody. That's why I'm arguing when we talk about getting back to normal after this pandemic. I don't know that I want to go back to normal. Because normal didn't work for a whole lot of people that we forgot about. A whole lot of people who became essential workers but we looked down upon before. A whole lot of people who didn't get decent wages, livable wages, and that we never cared about, that we saw in stark contrast to those who were living and making and didn't have to live paycheck to paycheck.
Wow.
A whole lot of folks who have health disparities that we never tried to address, or health care that should be available to a lot of folks. I don't want to return to that normalcy. We'll need to change some things to make that go.
Wow.
So, we lost focus on the progress, and everybody's been affected by that.
Yeah. Listening to you in this interview and then our previous conversation, I recognize you as a man of faith. How would you say your faith has influenced your philosophy or theology of social advocacy?
There's one line that stands out most for me. Who's your neighbor? Who is your neighbor?
Yeah.
God told us who that was. Christ told us who that was.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, and you ought to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think those of us who had the opportunity to get into public policy making, politics, you got to carry that with you in your heart. Yeah. You got to believe that you got to address all the problems out there as best you can.
Yeah.
That's not going to say that you can be perfect yourself.
Yeah.
Or that you will do it in a perfect manner, but you should always be intentional and striving to make sure that my neighbor is all right.
Yeah. And
my neighbor stretches, we can take that definition as far as we want to take it.
Yeah.
But that for me is the essential thing that the moral compass that I hope I follow is sort of dictated by the notion that you got to take care of folks. And that means taking care of people who missed that rung on the ladder, taking care of the people who are at the top of the ladder, who sometimes don't understand and may need more clarity.
Yeah.
So, and then, the bottom line, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to an eminent member of the clergy, but the bottom line is when you're a Christian, when you believe in God, and I don't wear this on my sleeve, there is deep down a hopefulness that says, I know who's in control at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if we just keep pushing forward with that thin amount of faith that we have, things will get better.
Yeah. So how did you intertwine this advocacy, philosophy, theology that you had developed, I'm sure in the earliest ages of your life, with your work as an architect and urban planner?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. Yeah. Because you could say, in one sense, drawing and imagining buildings and constructing buildings has very little to do with the politics of dealing with people and society, but it really does. It really has a lot to do with it. But I used to interpret it this way. I thought I was good at designing buildings. Yeah. And so I wanted my schools. Yeah. The many schools I've done in this community. Yeah. I imagined seeing kids being inspired by the great spaces that I designed to learn even more. I remember as a little boy, that fifth grade teacher that got me moving on the right track. Yeah. I used to look out of the window because there was a nice big window there. Yeah. And I would imagine all kinds of things and start sketching and drawing and being inspired by what was around me. So all my classrooms in my adult life had to be that way. Hmm. But even more so than that, when I put a building together, working with my colleagues, we are literally putting together thousands of pieces to make that building work. Yeah. Roofing systems, HVAC systems, wall systems, structural systems. Yeah. Each of them have a role to play in making that building a secure, safe space. Wow. Wow. And I used to see society in the same way. We all have a role to play. When I became a member of city council and later as mayor,
Yeah.
I used to see myself trying to orchestrate a building.
Wow.
You know, a Republican colleague over here,
Yeah.
a Democratic colleague over here who's got this interest, and both of them were legitimate.
Yeah.
How can I, as the architect, help construct that and make that something meaningful?
Yeah.
So I think it all ties together for me.
Yeah.
Assembling and listening to people and making things work for them.
Considering Swan versus Charlotte Schools Board of Education, Swan being a Presbyterian minister, what role can the church play, or what role should the church play in making social progress for the Black community?
Speak the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Speak the truth.
Yeah.
Hold that moral compass up so that people can see us a way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Talk plainly about how your religion ties into your everyday life and how you overcome those things. And I must tell you, as I told you earlier, my life has been influenced by the clergy in lots of ways. They were the leaders of the earlier civil rights movement. Substantially. Their churches were sanctuaries for us to think about how we could move forward. And it was a religious-based kind of an effort. But now I see all kinds of religious-based efforts that I think are sort of off the mark and aren't quite there. I have issues, for example, with the evangelical church and their strong support of the current president, and wonder how you reconcile his morality with what they preach and what they support. So I'm not suggesting that in all cases we have spoken the truth from the pulpit and forward. So that's why I started out by saying, let's speak truth. And truth to power, and truth to our congregants, to get them inspired, that they have something to say about their own lives. A lot of people are in low places right now, Reverend Willis. A lot of people are feeling down. A lot of people are depressed. A lot of people feel as if, and I'm not talking about everybody being a poor person feeling this way. A lot of people are losing hope. Seems to me there is a gap there that's got to be filled by you and leadership from the clergy.
Wow. Since you've moved to Charlotte, what three areas, have you seen the most social progress in? And what two areas still need to be addressed?
In this city alone, I've seen us, you'll find this surprising. I think we've done well in politics.
Okay.
I think our community has voted.
Mm-hmm.
The Black community has become much more aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reflected in the political leadership we get. We don't always get the best politicians, but we can elect them far easier than they could be elected years ago when I started out. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we have made some progress in education, both at the higher education level and that's all reflected in a growing middle class that I often tell my friends. I run into young people like yourself and others who are out there doing good things, and I'm amazed at the quality of their education and the potential for our community. I'm excited by that, and education caused that to happen. I'm a little less excited by the lack of attention we're giving to people who are poor. Maybe it's because more of us were poor back in the day, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And fewer of us are, but the few that there are should not be forgotten. And I think we have made mistakes there that are not good. I'm worried about how much guidance we give to our neighbors who are not doing as well economically in terms of helping with parenting or even managing a household. We could do more. We could do a lot more there. And finally, I'm not as enamored with the economic progress we have made. And I mean from the standpoint of our rise to the top in businesses. I read the Charlotte Business Journal because I want to keep up on what's going on in business. And the infrequency of African-American leadership there. Or there are a few notable people who are doing well in that area, but the entrepreneurship and the number of African-American businesses rising to a level of size and girth is not there. I think we could do a lot better than we have done. So politics, education, the rise of the middle class, all those things are good. Education compared to where we were before, but I'm disappointed in those other items.
One thing I personally have noticed, I pastor in Hidden Valley, and as we're seeing the trailway come closer to Tom Hunter, or the street off of which I pastor, North Tryon to Tom Hunter intersection, I'm realizing that more and more gentrification is happening, and those who are economically disadvantaged are being pushed to the side and pushed out. I've had family members who had to move beyond where they wanted to move because they couldn't afford to stay where they were. And so I guess my question is, what can the church community, the activist community, anyone who cares do to counteract the negative effects of Charlotte's expansive growth to the decline or to the othering of those who are economically disadvantaged?
So the question really is, how does Charlotte's growth be at least reined in to the point where it cares about the people who are being pushed out because of this dynamic growth? Isn't that really what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
The reason we're having this gentrification is that the city is attracting more and more people at a higher and higher level to compete in the 21st century economy. The people who are left behind, the people who are being pushed out wrongly, but wrongly only from a moral standpoint, not from an economic standpoint. You know, if you own a house in a neighborhood that's being gentrified and you sell your house at a favorable price to someone who wants to put 2 mansions on it or 2 apartments on it that are going to rent for far more than you ever, far more than anybody in your neighborhood could pay, and you profit from it, you can't stop people from doing that. But what should be our response to this growth? I don't think we can stop it. But I think the combination of government getting involved substantially is the only way out. So we got to build affordable housing. That's one way. But we see how long, that's a long way out. We got 30,000 units needed in the city. You can't build them fast enough. And we're going to still find resistance to affordable housing. But our governmental leaders have to persevere, and we're going to have to put up the dollars to be able to afford that. That's we citizens. Probably that's a price we have to pay.
Yeah.
to do something about that.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, why are people not able to afford a decent place to live?
Yeah.
They're not making livable wages.
Yeah.
So the McDonald's worker that we happily receive our takeout orders from every day,
Yeah.
we don't think about the fact that he or she might
Yeah.
be making $9 an hour.
Yeah.
That he or she may have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Just to try to pay the rent.
Yeah.
So society we have to pay people a livable wage.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's $15, $16, or $17 an hour.
Yeah.
But we resist it because it's going to cost us more.
Yeah.
In some way, we're going to have to pay higher prices somewhere.
Yeah.
But people need to be making enough money so that they can pay for some of these units.
Yes.
And then finally, this society needs a safety net, a better safety net. I dare say that if we had not had Social Security years ago,
yeah,
just imagine the situation
yeah,
amongst elderly people.
Yeah.
Well, we need to start thinking about that on a much broader basis. The 10 to 15% of the people in our society who aren't being paid livable wages, who can't work, who can't do what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So you address gentrification by dealing with some much bigger issues that are facing us.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I have 2 final questions. One being, if there's a major issue that our community is overlooking, what would the issue be that you think we need to fight? Or when I say fight, I don't mean fight, but I mean address and try to solve in the Black community.
I go back to my own childhood to try to answer a question you're asking me.
Yeah.
In the 21st century.
Yeah.
What's missing right now? What's missing? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to repair? What do we spend? What keeps us awake at night?
Mm-hmm.
What keeps me awake at night is wondering about the 21st century we're living in. The digital divide that we have. And whether my children will be law-abiding, fruitful citizens in the society. I think I'm working hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Johnny down the street or around the corner. And who helps him or her?
Yeah.
Who is giving guidance? I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Who's giving guidance to that young mother who might be unwed?
Yeah.
In terms of getting Johnny prepared for the world that Johnny's going to live in. So that we don't have him charting a path to prison and a life that's not fruitful. That people often, well, most people who know me know that public education is central to my mind. That when Charlotte gets to be a city that gets to be known not for all the buildings and the skyscrapers it builds, not because it goes from 20th to the 50th largest city or maybe to the 10th largest one day.
Yeah.
But when it gets to be known as the city that really educates all of its kids, that every single graduate has got a degree that's worth having and is going on to some other place to get a job one day, whether in the trades or in technology or in college or getting a PhD, every one of those kids has a chance. That's my dream. That's the thing I don't think we're addressing as fully. And there are other pieces of that I think might come into play. I know I'm only naming one, but each of them has an issue that I think needs to be afforded some attention.
final question. This has been a tremendous interview. The final question. From your perspective, seeing the historical progress that the Black community has made, some of which you've lived through and participated in, what can this new generation of activists, Christians, leaders learn from? And how can we advance upon the progress of previous generations?
Well, clearly, I think we learn a lot from where we've come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of people who are seriously trying to apply that to where we are today and where we ought to be, going. So I think there's a lot to be learned, but I think we also have to make sure that we're dealing contextually with where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a time we talked about getting registered to vote.
Yeah.
The issue of just getting registered was, as you know, back in the early days, a hurdle.
Yeah.
We don't have that hurdle anymore.
Yeah.
What we have the hurdle of is complacency.
Mm.
While we have done well politically, it is my belief that with all of what we've learned over the years, the election of this year and the subsequent election 2 to 4 years from now is going to affect us substantially. The entire country, but it may affect the African American community even more.
Yeah.
So my last word to you is, please, 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 I hope yours is a congregation where you're stressing the importance of voting and getting away from the complacency.
Yeah.
We used to struggle to get that right to vote.
Yeah.
We have done well with it. I've said that in this interview.
Yeah.
We've done well in Charlotte with it. But if we're going to elect the right people coming up, we can't be complacent.
Yeah.
We need 95% turnout
in
November. We really do.
Yeah.
I can't be any more blunt than that.
Yeah. Wow. Mr. Gantt, this has been a privilege. I mean, it's been an honor. You have answered questions. You have stretched my mind. You have challenged me as an individual who's considering what is my role for the future. And I hope all those who are going to listen to this interview will take your words to heart as someone who has lived through some of the worst days of the struggle, someone who has made great progress and experienced the benefit of what happens when we take seriously the need for justice in our community, the need for opportunity for people like us. And so for this, I thank you. I don't know if you mind, can I pray for you?
Yes, you may.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you so much for our former mayor, Harvey Gantt. We thank you for how you have used him as a steward in these times. We thank you that you have put in his heart a need to mentor, a need to give, a need to serve, and allow him not to view himself as all important, but as a steward of the gifts you give him. Thank you for his parents. Thank you for his early church life. Thank you for his contributions. Thank you for his architecture. Thank you for his service. Thank you for his commitment. And God, we honor him and we ask that you continue to bless him, even as he's left the political stage and is enjoying the twilight of his life. God, we thank you for his wife. We thank you for his children. We thank you for his work and ministry. We ask, God, that you preserve him, give him many more years of wisdom to pour into others, and that we may take his challenges and his wisdom seriously as we have a fight still to take. God, we ask that you be with our community, that you'd give us wisdom, that you give us unity, that you give us cohesion as we move forward. God, we thank you and bless us on the journey forward. Thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I'm very impressed also.
Yes.
And I didn't know that you were in our community, and we need to see you more visible.
Yes, sir.
I know you're visible in your church.
Yeah.
But it seems to me you've got a lot you want to say.
Yeah.
I say you want to say. You haven't said it all yet.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping this really is your time. A lot of people ask, how is it we don't hear from you much anymore, Harvey? And I said, because I think the stage now belongs to younger people.
Yeah.
When I was involved in politics, I was in my 30s and 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see those people step forward.
Mm.
I want to be behind the stage,
Yeah.
offering advice and sharing my experiences, but I don't want to be out front. I want them there.
Yeah.
And I think you're one of these kinds of folks.
Man, I want to thank Mr. Gantt for his time. You know, he didn't have to give this interview, but I think it was an essential interview. In this interview, he highlighted some things that I just want us to walk away with. And the main thing I want us to walk away with is there's two things I want us to walk away with. One, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis? What are we doing on a day-to-day basis to fight for the justice for the least of those among us? Those who've been economically disadvantaged, those who don't have the same privileges we have, and what are we doing to help them? I don't know if you know this, but Charlotte falls dead last for people being born in the city and climbing into another social strata, another class strata. That is to say that people who are born in Charlotte and who are born economically disadvantaged more than likely remain economically disadvantaged. And part of that fight deals with what are we doing with our education system. May I suggest to you today that we, as Mr. Gantt highlighted, need to focus on two main areas. Housing, making sure we have equitable, affordable housing for every citizen so that we're not pushing them out of their community, displacing them, putting them on the margins of society. But also, we need to make sure that the education that anyone who lives in Charlotte, who goes through the public school system receives, is a fair and just educational opportunity, a fair and just educational experience. It's not enough to increase choice. It's not enough to increase opportunity, because we have to realize when schools are given an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F grade by the state, it is not an indictment upon the school. It's not that the school cannot be fixed. It's not that the problems are unsolvable, but it is an indictment, and it shows the failure of us to make sure that even those who are considered the least of these among us are given a fair opportunity and shake in education. I ask this question, what are we doing to make sure that the education received by those who live here in Charlotte is fair and equitable? And I think we can do far more to make sure that the zip code you're born in doesn't determine your life's destiny. I think we need to make sure that we're making sure our educators are prepared and equipped. We're making sure that our educators are aware of class and race differences, and they're aware of who they're going to teach and how they're going to teach them. Making sure that our students come out the best and the brightest, because our students are going to build up our society. And so I want to challenge anyone who's listening and watching, make sure you go out and support a local school. Make sure you go out and support a local public school, a local private school that has students that are receiving vouchers. Make sure you're doing what you can to make sure they are given the opportunities necessary to go as far as they need to in this life. I want to admonish our churches that we not just be concerned about our student salvation, which is critically important, but we also need to be concerned about the type of education that they themselves are receiving. Well, I don't know about you. I had a good time. I'm sorry it's over. But I hope we really chew on and masticate the lessons that Mr. Gantt gave us today. Thank you and good night.